Welcome to Paramount Record Shop and Guitars. I'm Liz. Let's talk about some records. You just heard me play a little bit of Molten Grace that comes from the first record of the day, Larry Coryell's 11th House 7 Secrets. If you aren't familiar with jazz fusion, 11th House is an important fusion group from the 70s led by Larry Coryell, who's the guitarist. And they are grouped together with other groups like Mahavishnu Orchestra and Weather Report, sort of as the founding fathers of jazz fusion. And 11th House was only active during the 70s for a couple years, and they disbanded and each member went to go and play on with different groups, but they reformed and played a couple shows and then recorded this album in 2016 with 3 of the original members of 11th House. Unfortunately, at the end of 2016, the drummer Alphonse Mouzon passed away, and in February of this year, Larry Coryell also passed away. Coryell was in his 70s when this album was recorded, and for me as a guitarist, I was very impressed by his chops and dexterity, and I hope that my playing will sort of age as well as his did. So you heard me play a little bit of Molten Grace at the beginning of this video, and when I first listened to this album, that track caught my ear because I like solo guitar and I like Larry Coryell's acoustic guitar stuff, so I had to learn part of that when I first heard it. And if you're interested in playing that song, it's not as difficult as it sounds. If you watch me play it, it's just a 3-note guitar shape that he's moving around the neck, at least just in the beginning, before he goes and do his, crazy stuff. And another track that I like is the title track, 7 Secrets. It caught my ear because it's in 7/8 in odd time signature, which I always like tunes in odd time signatures, especially in 7. And it also switches into sections of 6/8, so it's really interesting to listen to try to catch which sections are in 7/8 and which ones switch to 6/8, and how the band just seamlessly switches between time signatures, which isn't easy to do. So it's sad to say that this is Larry Coryell's last album, but he has an extensive discography that you can check out, and I think this was a great last album. Our second record of the day, also a recent release, is Steven Wilson's To the Bone that was released this year. Steven Wilson is an English musician, he's a songwriter, he's a producer who gained recognition with his group Porcupine Tree, among other projects. Steven Wilson's a pretty interesting person. He's a self-taught musician and can play multiple instruments. On this album, he played guitar, bass, keys, and sang as well. It was pretty impressive when you listen to this album, all the layering of all the instruments that he played most of them. Both Wilson and his fans said that this album is more pop than his previous releases. For me, on my first listen, I didn't think it was extremely pop, but I'm comparing it to mainstream pop. I think his lyrics are more complex and his arrangements are more complex than what I associate with pop. My favorite tracks on this album are To the Bone, The Same Asylum as Before, and Pariah. On Pariah, the singer Nanette Tayeb is featured. There's also a music video with her that's really cool and artsy that I would recommend watching. There's also a video where Wilson goes through the album track by track and gives a story behind each song. The album art on this record is really cool. You can see it's very colorful. And with the edition that we have, it's on bone-colored vinyl. Very cool. And it also comes with inserts that have lyrics and who is on each track. And our third album of the day is an older record from 1979. And it is Enrico Rava's Quartet. It's a self-titled album released on ECM. Enrico Rava is a trumpet player and composer from Italy. He's played with a lot of different musicians and played on a lot of different albums. Some of the players he's played with are Pat Metheny, John Abercrombie, Joe Henderson, and Gil Evans, just to name a few. He's played in different sort of jazz styles like bebop and avant-garde jazz. Some interesting records that he's done are his versions of operatic arias and overtures, which for me I thought was really interesting. You don't hear that every day, that a jazz trumpet player is going to play opera, so that was very cool to listen to. He also has albums where he plays in the style or influence of different trumpet players like Louis Armstrong, Chet Baker, Miles Davis, and Bix Beiderbecke. So this album is one of his first albums, and one of my favorite tracks on it is the first track, which is Lavori Casalini, which I tried to translate it myself, and I figured out that it means housework, but again, I don't speak Italian, so I'm not entirely sure. But I also liked his version of Roundabout Midnight, which is a jazz standard. For me, not knowing a lot about jazz trumpeters because I'm a guitar player, he seems lesser known or underappreciated, even though he's played with a lot of more well-known jazz musicians and is a great player. So if you haven't heard him before and you're into jazz trumpet, I would recommend listening to him. The last album of the day is Bill Nelson's Chance Encounters in the Garden of Lights from 1987. Bill Nelson is an English musician who gained recognition with his group Bebop Deluxe, which is a prog rock band. They were active during the 1970s, and he was the main songwriter, vocalist, and guitarist for that group. Bill Nelson has a very extensive discography, and it's really impressive to see how much work he has done. And he is still creating music now. He's not performing live because a few years ago he woke up partially deaf in one ear and now has constant tinnitus. So he doesn't perform live, but he's still recording. This album is experimental electronic avant-garde music. It was very interesting. I hadn't heard it before, and all the titles of the songs are interesting, and each song is about 1 minute to 2.5 minutes long. When I first listened to this, like my very first listen, it sort of reminded me of music that you would hear while you're getting a massage, or if you're meditating. It's sort of spacey and ambient. And as I kept listening to it, I thought, oh, this would be great for like an 80s sci-fi movie, since I'm a fan of those movies. And also, it would be cool for modern dance performances. As I was sort of looking into this album and researching it a little bit, there's a really cool quote from Bill Nelson where he's talking about the inspiration for this album. And he says like it's ideally suited for an occultist and for meditation. So I thought that was pretty cool that I picked up on the meditation feel, and that's what this is intended for. So as I kept looking into Bill Nelson, I found some of his other projects that he's done also related to like occultism or spirituality, and one that caught my eye was the Orchestra Arcanum. If you know the word arcana, it is mainly associated with tarot cards because a tarot deck is split into 2 arcana. So after seeing that, I just thought, wow, he's really into occult or spirituality. So if you're looking for something to meditate to, or to dig deeper into your subconscious, this is a good album for that. Thank you for watching our record vlog. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We release new videos every month. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram, where we post daily. You can also check out our website if you want to buy some vinyl online. And if you're in the area of Watertown, Wisconsin, come hang out with us in the store.